This is the first video of the Introduction to Data Analysis with R screencast series produced by the Chair of Political Methodology at the Political Science Department of the University of Zurich. This first series covers 6 episodes. This is the first episode, First Steps in R and RStudio. Throughout the series, I will use 2 programs. The first is, of course, R. R is a free software environment for statistical computing and graphics. The program is available on all major platforms and can be downloaded from the link on the screen. R natively offers just a command line interface for interactions. To make using R more accessible, we will use a second program. RStudio is an integrated development environment specifically for R. The program is, like R, free software, and I highly recommend installing and using it because it makes using R a lot easier. This is the program you will see during all the episodes. After downloading and installing both programs, I start RStudio by double-clicking on its icon. When the program opens, I see 3 visible panels. On the left is the console. It is where all interactions with R take place. I will insert commands there and then inspect what R gives back. The next panel to the right contains an overview of the workspace and the command history. The History tab will be covered later in this episode and the Workspace tab in the next episode. The third panel contains 4 subpanes by default. The Help panel is the most important one. It allows you to search the R documentation and presents an interactive result. I will make heavy use of the R documentation starting in episode 2. The Plots panel shows graphics which are produced by R. The fourth panel, which is an editor for R files, is currently inactive, but I will encounter it later in this episode. Now let us start with the first interactions with R. They take place directly in the console. I therefore click in the console pane. Now the cursor should blink, which means I can start to type the first command. To begin, I see R just as an elaborate calculator. So to know the result of 1 plus 4, I can type 1 plus 4 and then hit enter. The result that R gives back is, of course, 5. I just entered a command and R gave back some output. While this example was very simple, the structure of an interaction with R always follows this pattern. I can also divide numbers with R. To obtain the result of 5 divided by 6, I just enter 5/6 and hit enter. Again, R returns the result. To make more complicated and useful calculations, I want to store the result that R gives back. This concept is called an object or a variable. First, I have to choose a name for the variable. For this first variable, I choose the name A. To save the value of the last calculation in this variable, I type A greater than sign, a hyphen, and then 5 divided 6. The arrow-like syntax makes clear what I do. I take the result of 5 divided by 6, the part to the right of the arrow, and store it in a variable called A, the left part. I can now use A in my calculations. For example, I can take 6 times A. The result is, of course, 5. I can also take squares by entering A circumflex 2 and hitting enter. If I want to know what value A stores, I just type the variable name and hit enter. Keeping track of one simple object is easy, but when doing data analysis with R, you will have a large number of variables and some will store entire datasets of possibly thousands of observations. With this in mind, the Workspace tab becomes handy because it makes dealing with variables easier. When the variable A was created, it immediately showed up in the tab. For simple variables like the variable A, I see the value of the variable directly. For more complex variables, a short description of the content is shown. Now imagine I already want to conclude my analysis at this point, but I want to retain everything I have done for future work on the project. R offers a convenient way for doing this, called a script file. It is a simple text file that contains R commands. When you load, or in R terminology, source, the script file, R reads and executes the commands line by line in the order of the script file. Now, to save the state of the analysis, the first step is to open a new R script file by clicking the icon with the plus in the top left corner and choosing R script file from the drop-down menu. It makes sense to immediately save the script file by either choosing the common shortcut Ctrl+S or by clicking on the disk icon. The file name can be chosen freely, but it is common to have the extension .R or .r. Here I choose the name Simple Math followed by the extension .r. I confirm the file name by clicking on Save. Now I want to copy all the commands I entered to the new file. The History tab helps me with this. It shows all commands I entered in the same order that I entered them. When I click at one command, it gets highlighted, and I can choose whether I want to send it to the console or to the script file. I choose to send it to the source, and it turns up in the editor. I want to do the same thing for all other commands I entered up to this point. So I click on the second command, and while holding down Shift on the last command. This way all commands in between get highlighted and I can send them to the source file editor by clicking on the icon. Now I have all the commands I need in a separate file. This is a good moment to save the script file by again clicking on the disk icon. Now this file is a valid R script file and R will have no problem reading it. But it is likely that I, on the other hand, will forget what this file was about or why I used a certain command in a particular place. To address this problem, I can add comments to the script. Comments are human-readable instructions explaining what a certain command does and why I used it. In R, comments begin with a hashtag. Everything after the hashtag is ignored by R when it reads the file. So I can add a new line at the beginning of the file and then type hashtag followed by text that explains the commands that follow. I do the same thing again for the other commands. So first a new line, then a hashtag and then the explanatory text. Last, I delete an unnecessary new line and save the file. The script file is now complete with comments and can be read easily at the next session. With this, I arrive at the end of the first episode. In this episode, I covered R and RStudio, interacting with the R console, and creating and annotating R script files. The next episode will cover variables and functions in greater detail, and I will start by sourcing the file I just created.